with BNI Atlanta. I'm one of the executive directors, and this is our second webinar in the series for our Monday mugs. And that is, the topic is how to leverage your BNI meeting to meet more visitors, or sorry, to impact your visitors. So how the visitor process helps you develop more referrals in the end. And so we were focusing on our visitor hosts doing a knockdown, drag out job to help increase our visitor experience or elevate our visitor experience, but really to make us look better as business people. And so what's that visitor host team look like? Just a quick review. We have one person that's coordinating, making sure all of these things are being done. We want to have at least 2 or more greeters, 2 people helping with the open networking and moving people and introducing them, and then 1 person that is our follow-up specialist and has a visitor orientation after. So I'm going to flip through some of these. There is, if you want to see more about those responsibilities and work with your visitor host, it's on page 120 of the leadership team manual. And so what's the coordinator going to do? They're going to make sure that everyone's doing their job. They're going to report to the president on how things are going for the visitor host team, and really think of the visitor hosts as your sales team. They're going to really be the first folks that meet the visitors before they even get to the chapter. And last week we talked about the importance of communicating to the chapter who's coming to the meeting. So I want you to envision, what if you knew, maybe there's some days that your chapter has 3 to 4 or maybe even more visitors, and wouldn't it be pretty powerful to have known who they were ahead of time? And I think that that's where we can add to it, is before they even get to our welcome table, let's make sure that we touch base with them. And we had mentioned, one thing you can do when you're inviting folks, granted you can invite from BNI Connect or the app, and of course the app is down today as well, so because it's fed off of the website, but you can send an invitation straight from your phone, and not just inviting someone, but even copying an email to your entire chapter to say, hey, here's my visitor, and I think I sent everyone a copy of that suggested email, and introduce your visitor to the chapter to show more value and promote them. Go to our Facebook page and promote who your visitor is, and tag, their business as well. So thinking along those lines, that helps give you a reason to get in front of them, to touch base with them, and so on. But I think as a member, I would love to know who's coming ahead of time. Number 1, because it gets me more excited. Number 2, because I can reach out to them. And number 3, I can do research on them and their business and where do they come from, and that kind of thing. So any input from there. Let me see if we have anyone that wants to add anything to that. Let me unmute you just a second. Does anyone have any input from that point? Okay, I'll move on. Let me mute everyone again. Okay, so, and I think the biggest thing that we were doing a member success program on Friday, and then at the roundtable meeting with the visitor host teams. And, one thing that they said that they found very valuable is saying to the visitor, hey, is there someone that you would like to meet when you visit our chapter? I have a copy of the guest list. That is true. We have a member roster and we have a copy of the visitor list. And so really making sure that we make that physical introduction when they walk in is huge. Here is a copy of, or a picture of a sign-in table. Look, the name badges are already made. And I might suggest, what if you actually did this as a visitor host, or ask your visitor host if they could start doing this at your chapter, to put the person's name, but invited by Maribel. But just to put invited by on the bottom, to highlight who invited.
But we're not seeing your screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. I stopped sharing it because I was looking up something else. Okay, thanks. So yeah, I shared this last week as well. But so you see on there, it's got the name, but why not highlight the person that invited them again? Just put invited by. I thought that was a neat touch. And making sure that, like I said, we actually introduce them to someone of value. And, you know, making sure, again, this is all about the visitor experience. And you all know that the feedback we receive from the visitors is when we do get them, we do send them to like an email response. They get an email from our office that's automated. By the way, if you're a member and you visit, make sure that they don't count you as a visitor, because you will get the automated email. I got a little nasty gram from a member saying, I can't believe that you don't remember me. And I'm like, I do remember you. It's an automated email. What are you doing checking in as a visitor? So make sure that those people aren't counted as a visitor at the chapter, because they will receive the automated email. And there is a way for them when they're entering them to say, please do not send them the email. I got one when I visited the chapter from myself. It was kind of funny. But we do receive some responses via email back to say, yes, it's of value. I can't join right now. There's some people that have questions about the application process. So any feedback we get, positive or negative, we do send that to your leadership team. So if you're interested in hearing about some of, you know, what the visitors are looking at when they visit the chapters, you know, check with your leadership team, because we do get some response from them. So they're going to give them the name badge, hand them off. And as a member, what can you do if you say, well, I'm not a visitor host, that's not my role. Well, what can you do to impact that? You can kind of linger around and make sure that you're there early. And we sometimes will say, everyone's a visitor host. We want to make sure that no visitor is just sitting there, and really not just visitors, but some members. If you go into your meeting and you see that people are not engaged, go up to them. You know, they may be retreating into their shell. Maybe they're just not awake that morning yet. They haven't had their coffee. Go and start a conversation. And I'd like to hear from you all, keeping in mind, if you knew who the visitors were, and this is where this webinar is showing additional value of how to make this a more advanced interaction with the visitors, instead of, hey, what's your name? You know, number one, hopefully they have a name badge on. And if you knew who they were before you got there, and you had time to look at their website, look them up on LinkedIn or something, then you don't have to say, hey, Val, so what do you do? I could actually say, hey, Val, I saw that you were introduced to our chapter 2 days ago. I checked out your company. Wow, you have a really clever video on your website. That was really sharp. I have no idea, but isn't that a better conversation? And then that value goes, wow, these people are really serious about business, but about networking. They actually did a little research on me. And in the email introduction that I sent as a suggestion last week, what else does it have? Not just, hey, here's my visitor and here's their website and their LinkedIn profile or whatever, but hey, visitor, read more about my chapter. Here's our chapter website link. And believe it or not, if you give them the link to your chapter website, which is, by the way, marketing for your entire chapter and your business, they actually click on it because they want to know who's there. Isn't that what we all want to know? Who's going to be in that room? Who is of value to me, and who am I of value to? So check that out. Now, granted, BNI Connect is down, but the leadership teams can pull the chapter, the visitor registration report. And again, if this is not being done in your chapter, because it's a relatively new concept, but you know, if we could know who those prospects are ahead of time, we can network before they come, we can bond with them before they get there. You as a member can send them an email and say, hey, I noticed that you're in the East Cobb area. I live over that way as well, or my business is over there. Just, it gives you a reason to contact them. And in the sales and marketing process, isn't that what we need? Is a reason to contact, a commonality, building rapport. So if it's not being done, go volunteer to do it as a visitor host. Say, hey, here's this idea I'd love to implement. I'll take it on. I'll own it. If you want, I can be one of those visitor hosts that's my only role, if it's not being done. Or you go back and say, hey, we have 4 visitor hosts. Which one of you could add this to your things to do? So check with your leadership team, and it would tell you the information, right? So it would actually let us prep ahead of time. It's not a bad idea to have the name badge written out when you get there, but even more impressive, I was at a meeting and they already had the name badges done. Very small details, okay? And then they actually take, and I don't want to create more work for you, they poke holes in this, in their business cards and put them on a ring. Some of you have a chapter brochure, and I think that's perfect. If your chapter doesn't have a brochure, there are many templates out there. I know we're working with the Cartersville chapter. They don't currently have one, but you can put on there. I was at the BAG chapter recently, and it was very nicely done. It has all of the chapter members listed with a little note section that you can take notes. So you notice people are writing notes because it says take notes. It lists their most wanted, their speakers, so it's got some leaders on there as well. So if your chapter doesn't have that, that's a nice little promotional piece for the visitors to take. And then the sign-in sheet, okay, you know those. So even if the chapter, and for our core groups, we're just going to print a roster like this, so at least we'll have something as you're building. So it will list the members and their categories, and so they can take it with them. So I want to ask you all, what are some conversation starters that what do you use? What's your angle when you're working with someone? So I'm going to see what we have in chat. Oh, Maribel, yes, I can. I'm sorry, I didn't see that. I don't know what you were needing, but let me unmute everyone really quick. Hope you're ready for some feedback. So what's some conversation starters? How do you make your guests feel comfortable?
See if you can find out what contact sphere they're in.
Oh, perfect. That was from Quentin in the, oh, okay, you're good then, Maribel, okay. So contact sphere, definitely. And I've seen this before. We had a 99-person visitor event once, well, many times, I'm sure, but we actually color-coded the name badges with a sticker. So we knew what contact sphere they were in. Again, that takes minutia detail, but just asking them. So how do you do that, Quentin? What questions do you ask? Because they may not know what a contact sphere is, right? But you can ask them what types of businesses they call on.
Well, I took your advice last week, and we have a roster of everybody in our chapter, and I put it on the visitor table and gave it to them in the beginning because it was confusing when they walked in. It was sitting on the table, and then asked them what they did and tried to connect them with someone in that contact sphere.
Oh, cool. And even I think how powerful that is, but even what about the steps before that, right? As if we can get, and I know I was at a chapter and they said, well, we can't get our visitors registered. Most of them are not registered ahead of time. And I think that just goes back to getting the members educated on doing it and showing the value of doing it. I know we're all busy. I know I'm really busy, and I know you guys are really busy, and I know our members are really busy, but this is what we're busy with, isn't it? It's networking with people. And so if we can just train them to just start doing that and showing them the value of email introducing their folks at least, and registering them, that it's so much better if we can do that. And it's baby steps, we know. Kind of the new breed of BNI is being on that mobile app. And if you think about in the last year, the app has come out. So I think that we'll start finding that people will register. The invitation, if we even back up further, if we're going to send an invite, or let's say I say, Quentin, I'd love to invite you to come meet my one that I heard last week at the BAG chapter, the mortgage lady said, I'd like to invite you to my private networking group. I was like, "Ooh, that sounds exclusive, doesn't it?" But it is. It's a private group that we invite people to. So I thought that was an interesting dialogue she used with a client or a prospective client of hers. And here's the other thing that I thought would be really valuable is, and I shared it at one of the trainings, the Member Success Program last Friday, and a very seasoned B&I member, he was a founding member probably 8 years ago, and a seasoned realtor. When we were chatting, Luann, I don't know if you're on here, but it was J.D. Kellum. And he said, I never thought about calling my clients. Call your existing clients, if you haven't talked to them in a while, and say, or client, family, friends, associates, to say, hey, I'm not sure if you realize it, but I'm part of a private or closed networking group. And if you have a family or friend that is in sales or marketing and needs more referrals, please put me in touch with them. I want to help them because you're helping us in our business, so we want to help the people that you care about. And that angle sparked something in him the other day. He was like, I never thought about that. What a great way to use inviting someone as a way to touch point and dig a little bit deeper in that relationship. So a lot of folks, instead of inviting people to join, just invite people that you want to touch base with. Maybe it will help their business grow. Maybe they visit and they don't join. That's okay. No one has ever left going, well, this was a waste of my time. I can't believe you invited me to this. So most people will say, wow, thanks for the invite. That's not my thing. I had a lady very gracefully decline. She was like, thanks so much, but I'm really not interested in participating in something like that. A lot of times I will say, well, you don't have to join. You can just come and visit. That's all. Just make me look good. So use it that way to say, hey, you guys do a good job, when you're dealing with your vendors and stuff. So I think we think sometimes, oh, I only need to invite people that are going to join. And I know that, yes, we want to grow your spheres, but more importantly, we want to grow your business. And so I think just getting back to that is really key. So any other points you want to discuss? And I'm going to mute again so you guys can let your dogs bark and make other noises in the background. So my dogs are circling. They haven't been fed. They're probably going to eat my foot in a minute, but hold on just a second and I'll mute. Let me go through. And I think, so here's the other part of Quentin. You mentioned something just now about it could be confusing, and a lot of folks don't know what to expect. And I think not having an idea of what's going to happen without telling them too much. When you're inviting folks, once they say, oh yeah, I'd love to go. Well, great. Let me explain to you what's going to happen. You actually have, there's really 3 times to speak. This says 2 on the agenda, but really open networking is 1. Their weekly or their presentation about their business. And then at the end, they get to participate in the contribution part of the meeting. And as I've been sharing with some folks, again, leveraging your business, okay, this is all about making a good impression and those kind of things with the visitors. If you have a letter of testimonial ready to go, if you have a prospect at the end, as a visitor host, or go back and share this idea with your visitor host to say, hey, we have a testimonial book. If you'll start gathering testimonials from your members, have it on the sign-in table. So Quentin, when you're addressing that visitor, you could say you have 3 times to speak. 1 is during open networking, but 2 on the agenda. 1 is about your business. At the end, it's about other people. So if you'd like, you could do a testimonial about Bob, who invited you today. I just happen to have one from his website right here, if you'd like. Battery low, need my charger. And so think about positioning it. And as we know, as members, during the contribution of the referral part of the meeting, you are to share 2 things. 1 is a referral or a testimonial, not about one-to-ones and, oh, that was a great presentation. But sometimes people fill it in with other things, even though they might not have a referral. That's okay. Sometimes we don't have a referral. We may be working on one. So then you have an arsenal, or if you don't have a testimonial book, I thought it was great. My brother actually said, well, I just went to their website and pulled it up and read it straight from their website. So that's a great way to give a testimonial about someone in your contact sphere, or maybe you give a testimonial about a visitor. But the idea is that you have a testimonial ready so that if you have a prospect in the room, remember, this is all about leveraging your business with these visitors. Sometimes if a visitor doesn't know who you are, maybe it's one that you invited, that's great. But if you could actually have one ready, have another member read it for you, even if the visitor doesn't, at least people that don't know you will get to hear something. Yeah, I know, isn't it? It's like, duh, why did we not think of that sooner? I had heard that idea a long time ago. Yeah, a LinkedIn testimonial would be great. So I would encourage you all to go back, have your visitor hosts, or again, go back and say, hey, can we have a testimonial book? I heard about it on this webinar. I think it'd be really powerful for us to have. Someone's got to own it. The existing visitor host may or may not want to, but you can't just step on their toes and do it. So go back and say, hey, could we add this to it? If you're already a leadership team position, then that would make sense. But I think that could be really valuable. But yeah, you're exactly right, Quentin. I think pulling a LinkedIn testimonial off, it would be great as well. And then just let them know, I think just observing people. At the end of the meeting, I was at a couple of meetings last week, and one chapter did a really good job to prep this visitor. Most visitors are not going to have a referral. That's okay. But what we do want is to hear them either talk about in November and give a testimonial, or share with us what they liked about the meeting. Something that you enjoyed about today's meeting. That is, do you know what the real reason we want to hear from them is? We want to know if they're a prospect. Some people will say, oh, thanks so much, Quentin, for inviting me. I can't wait to be a part of this chapter. I was at one meeting, the bag, tents. Anyone from the bag? The gentleman that visited, he was from a tent rental company. That's all they do is tents, right? Tents and tables and that kind of stuff for large events. And so at the end of the meeting, he actually said, I can't wait to find out more about you all and do business with you. And he's coming back to the meeting. So he let us know he's interested. Other visitors may say, oh, nice presentation, right? And that shows you right away what their thought process is about, are they going to come back? Are they going to join? So just letting them know, hey, at the end of the meeting, we're going to have a visitor orientation. So as visitor hosts, I think we prep them. And even more so when you're inviting them, let them know this is kind of how it works. And then there's a table tent that is pretty handy. If you guys want, I can send it out to you. And it basically just says visitor. You can reuse it, or you can toss it. I would say reuse it, but you can put the visitor, it says visitor across, BNI visitor, and you can put their name on it. So that's kind of a neat way to do that. And then, sitting next to a visitor, if you invited them, obviously is key. And then, so we know that they're going to pass around the cards. Every chapter does it differently. If they're in a competing industry, obviously they're going to be skipped for the introduction. Quentin, there's yours, introducing them to the contact sphere, obviously. And I think during the meeting, visitor, the president, and again, these are all touch points. This is all around the visitor to help you build more rapport and build your credibility. Depends on the leadership team doing their job as well. So a lot of us are like, oh, it's no big deal. I was president, I just won the meeting. No, you can set the stage for a really good impression or a really not so great impression. So we're going to introduce, hey, visitors, we'd like to welcome you. The visitors are going to talk for how many seconds. They're going to run the meeting with professionalism, obviously enthusiasm, keep it fun and engaging, but without being too sappy. We like to leave the drama at the door, because if we're hesitant, we're not going to invite people. And if we don't invite people, we don't get to meet new people. So it's really important that everybody works together. And then here it is, the question. We've got to ask the visitors, what part did you like the most about the meeting, or what impressed you about today's meeting? We need to hear those kind of things from the visitors. And then during the meeting, we want to make sure that your secretary treasurer actually says, hey, visitors, because some visitor feedback, guys, if I was at a meeting last week, I'm not going to say the chapter, but it was not the bag, because I've already mentioned them, because they did a great job with their secretary treasurer actually saying, hey, visitors, if you're interested in being a part of our team, this is the process for doing so. I had 3 visitors in the last 6 months that have said, well, they didn't ask me to join, so I assume they didn't want me to apply. Ha! Because they didn't go through the process. And so at the end of the meeting, the sec treasurer is supposed to say, and there's trial clauses on that agenda to kind of the president in the very beginning, if you've been a president, you know this. And on a copy of the agenda, it actually says in the beginning, welcome visitors, take a look at what we do. If you think this could be valuable for your business, we're going to have a visitor orientation after, and you can get an application there. And then right before the introductions, they say it again, visitors, if you like what you see, you'll have an opportunity to do this later. So making sure those things are done. And then in the visitor orientation, just to say, hey, we're serious about business if you'd like an application. And even more so, if you invited someone, making sure you know that these processes exist. The president's going to go through the close and go through the question. The visitor host orientation is really critical. If you have a visitor, I recommend going out with them. Now, if you have a visitor every week, then you'd miss the end. But finding out what what they enjoyed about the meeting. And now let's talk about what do you all do for your follow-up let me just scroll through. What do you guys do with your follow-up? How do you follow up with the visitors that come to your chapter? Does an email go out to the chapter and the visitors to say, hey, thanks visitors for attending. We look forward to seeing you again. But what do you do as a business person? Let me unmute and see what you guys do. Hopefully make some type of phone call, right? Or a note or something. What do you all do when you have a visitor that attends your chapter? What's your traditional follow-up?
I like to call, Kathy, I'm sorry. This is Luann.
Luann? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I like to call them and ask them what they thought about the meeting. Did they feel like it was beneficial to them, which they always say yes, and try to invite them back for the next week.
Yeah, and Luann, by the way, is in our Henry County core group. She's the realtor down there. So if you all have any folks down in McDonough that aren't driving up to join your chapter, please text them over to Luann. They meet on Thursdays at 8 o'clock. So yeah, I think that's huge, just to follow up, just, with your own visitors. Now, are you making those calls to all the visitors, Luann, or just yours that you invited?
Just the ones I invited right now.
Okay. Okay.
Since we're still forming.
Kathy. Oh, who is that?
Kathy, this is Deborah from BNI Decatur.
Yes. Hey.
Hey, we have a designated visitors host who does the follow-ups every week. During the meeting, if the visitor shows up, I check them in through the BNI app and make sure that they're counted for palms. And I send that email of all the visitors who attended to Randy, who's our designated visitor host for follow-up. And he follows up with them, calls them, and checks in with them. And he's also part of the team that does the visitor host orientation. So they've already seen him face to face, and then they actually get a follow-up from him afterwards as well.
Right. Yeah, and you guys have implemented and I think elevated the visitor process tremendously over there. We've gotten really good feedback. So I think that's great. And in the visitor orientation, your visitor host and sometimes the membership committee will actually go through the process for joining. And so what I want to make sure is when, there's usually a designated person or two that will follow up about the application. And so as members, you all don't have to do that. what I would recommend, find out if they enjoyed it, and if they'd like to come back, they can visit twice. And you'll want to be familiar with at least the fees. Obviously, you paid them, so you kind of know what they are, but a little bit about the process. But your follow-up for the general membership at this point is just to say, hey, I didn't get to talk to you much about your business. Do you want to go network at a chamber with me, or would you like to have coffee? Just show them some genuine consideration, I think is huge. A lot of the visitors follow-up that we do when we make a call, and we actually have 2 folks on our team, and we're getting ready to add another to help with calling the visitors to say, hey, we hope you found it to be valuable. Do you have any questions about the application process or the benefits of membership? And we also will ask them, have you heard from anyone from the chapter that you visited? And most people are being followed up with from the visitor host or leadership, but not necessarily the general membership. And so what I would highly suggest is, letting folks know in the core group, we talk about this a lot, because we're buying a membership, but there's access to a lot of visitors. But a lot of our members don't just follow up just to say, hey, I didn't get to meet you. You're across the room. It was a really, great meeting, high energy, and I'd love to find out more about you, just about you. Not, we want you to join, but, we're not going to say that. The idea is that the members follow up to talk about business and getting to know each other genuinely. If they don't join, that's fine, but I think some of our members wait for them to actually come back. I don't think that we're networking beyond that, so I'd love to increase or get y'all's feedback. Do you think that is the case, other than you as visitor host, if you're on leadership of some sort? But do you all get the feeling that your members do or do not follow up as much? Because that's my perception. Maybe I'm hoping I'm skewed, but I'd love to see what you guys think. Do you think most of your members are actually following up just for business, or are they just waiting for them to come back? I hope not. So I'm going to take that as you don't know, or we're over our time too. So I hope that helps you a little bit. Next week, I want to talk more about connecting after the meeting, and how we can enhance that process to network beyond the BNI meeting. So thanks again. Please invite your members to participate. And don't forget, we have the roundtables this Wednesday in Marietta. Those are open to all members. It's good networking with chapters in the area. And then we have Lawrenceville later this month, and Noonan even. So we have 3 more member success programs and roundtables. And if your visitor hosts have not registered, please get them registered and come to the meeting so we can share ideas like this. All right, thanks so much for participating. We will talk to you all later. Have a good one. Bye-bye. Oh, and don't forget to go post something on our Facebook page. Thanks. Bye-bye.